This is Captain.
All right, thank you all for coming to the next class in the series. Today's class is called The Motherboard. I can't take credit for that title. My queen actually came up with that title for it because mitochondria only pass down by way of the mother. And we know for any technological system, the most important part of that computer is usually the motherboard. You know, it's a collection of all these little pieces that work together in order to make the whole computer work. And that's what the mitochondria does for us as well. So we're going to break down the mitochondria today so that as people constantly ask me over and over again, what do I do to help this? What do I do to take care of this? How much of this should I take? What's the next step? I tell them all the same thing. I say, listen, you need to focus on that guy. Or that girl, rather. Focus on the mitochondria. If you spend more time studying and understanding how a mitochondria functions and operates, you yourself will be able to take care of what you're dealing with. Because all of our problems are not based on our cellular structure. It is based on the mitochondria. And the mitochondria then influences the cellular structure. So we're addressing something second hand or third rather than going straight to the source, which is the mama. Okay? All right, so let's start. So what is the mitochondria? The mitochondria is an organelle inside of our cells. All of our cells do not have a nucleus, such as the red blood cells. So at least 3/4 of all of our cells has a nucleus, has DNA. But inside of those cells, there are other organelles, the same way our bodies have organs. And specifically, we're touching on the mitochondria. What separates the mitochondria from the other organelles in the cell, the most distinct difference, is the fact it has its own DNA. Okay, and this is what the mitochondrial DNA looks like. It's in a ring formation. It's still a double helix like ours is, but as opposed to it being linear, it's actually in rings, okay, in circles. Now this loop, this ring that we see, you see how it says cytochrome, oxidase, got all these words around it, ATP synthase, NADH, cytochrome. What it's saying is the DNA that's inside of the mitochondria is there to code for the proteins that make the mitochondria up. So the mitochondria has a function. The function that the mitochondria executes is based on the tools and the mechanisms that it possesses. It has to keep those mechanisms up to par, clean, functioning properly. And the only way it could do that is if it keeps on producing, thank you, it keeps on producing the particular machines that they need and the DNA that it contains. All right, now, anybody ever heard of the citric acid cycle, Krebs cycle? Yes, hands. All right. What does it do?
It's a form of producing energy from citric acid, right? It's a way of producing
Energy
in
from
a cellular
citric
level.
acid. Okay. Who else had their hand up? You had your hand up. You didn't? Oh, you was just yawning. Okay. You had your hand up.
Yeah, I could tell. I heard about it.
You heard about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
videos about it.
Anybody else want to take a stab at it? No.
Great.
Okay.
I'm just saying stuff.
What's the source? What's the source of citric acid?
Food.
Yes.
Citric.
Citrus fruits, right? What's the #1 citrus fruit you think has citric acid inside?
Lemons.
Lemons. That's why you can make like lemon batteries. You ever seen somebody turn the light on by plugging it into a lemon before? Y'all looking like, no, never seen that. But yeah, you can. We got some experiments coming. But you could eat lemons and lemons will give you a lot of energy. And the reason being is because of this citric acid cycle, which really doesn't produce energy itself. What it does is it produces atomic particles, so to speak. You eat an apple or a banana. I hope she doesn't. You eat a banana. Okay, first of all, you're not just gonna, you're gonna peel it, right? Because the fibrous exterior of this banana, you're not gonna be able to digest based on the enzymes you have inside of your body, right? So you peel it and then you eat the flesh that's on the inside, right? But the point of you eating it is to chew it, saliva, put it down in your stomach, acid, break down intestines, turn it into sugar and all the minerals so they could get in the blood. Then your body can use it. So it's all about turning this solid object, this huge, because to a subatomic particle, this thing is like a planet. And it's all about turning this planet to a grain of sand. You see, that's what your body is doing. Now, this citric acid cycle are a series of steps, specific coordinated steps in order to pull out electrons and protons that can be used in the mitochondria to create energy. Okay? So this is like if you will go over steps. But the funny thing about it is it's not a two-dimensional structure inside of our mitochondria. It's actually a platonic solid known as a dodecahedron. Who has ever heard of that? Yeah, got a couple dodecas in here. Okay, go look up the 5 platonic solids. All right, who knows who the 5 platonic solids are? Anybody? Okay. Now, we are in Pan-African connection. We look around here and there's so much to be proud of. All of our history going back thousands of years. We call ourselves sun people. We say we kings and queens, people of the stars. We were the first to invent this, the first to do that. But what are we doing now? I called it a platonic solid. I should be struck by lightning because I said that. You know why? Because Plato did not create it. Plato learned from the ancient Chemites, our people, okay, which are really the Kemetic solids, all right, the elementals, and he put his name on it. Or really a bunch of people who were studying under him decided to put his name on it rather than put our name on it. Just like the Pythagorean triangle, Kemetic triangle, okay? But there's 5 of these solids: tetrahedron, okay, hexahedron, dodecahedron, icosahedron, and octahedron. Okay, and each one deals with a different element: earth, water, air, fire, and ether or spirit. This is the spirit one. This is the high one. Dodeca means 12. Hedron means seats. Why 12? Because it's got 12 faces. 12 faces of what? Pentagrams. Okay? So this cycle that I just showed you, all right, these molecules, as they're flipping and flopping and exchanging to produce these atomic particles that the mitochondria are going to use, they form a dodecahedron in the process. Does it flow is the question. I'm like, okay, it sounds like that's what all that does, but how does it work? All right, anybody ever heard of a turbine?
Yes.
What's a turbine, y'all?
Propels the jets.
Propels the jets, right? Turbine means vortex. It also means turbulence. All right? It's a rotary mechanical device that extracts energy from a fluid flow and converts it into useful work. The work produced by a turbine can be used for generating electrical power when combined with a generator or producing thrust, as in the case of jet engines. A turbine is a turbo machine with at least one moving part called a rotor assembly, which is a shaft or drum with blades attached. Moving fluid acts on the blades so that they move and impart rotational energy to the rotor. Early turbine examples are windmills and water wheels. Okay, so that ATP synthase that I showed you is a turbine. Same turbine that's underneath the wings of the jet. Look at the shape of it. Okay, you got the shaft, you got the drum, and you got the blades. But what is the fluid flow? It's a hydrogen turbine. So those protons that are trapped in that little space, they represent the fluid flow. So as they build up in that space, because they can't get back in the matrix, they're stuck in that space. The only way they can get back in the matrix is by way of this channel on the side of here, and it starts to make this thing spin. And in it making it spin, it causes it to produce ATP. All right, here's another molecular model of it, but let's get a simple model. All right. So this is the membrane. We've been talking about membranes. Okay, it's called a phospholipid bilayer. The reason why it's called phospholipid is because it's made out of phosphorus and it's made out of lipids. Lipids being fats, right? The phosphorus side points up, okay, into the matrix of the mitochondria, and it also points down into the intermembrane space where the watery environments are, because phosphorus is water soluble. Lipids are not. Now, what do I mean by water soluble? If you throw just a sprinkle of water in a frying pan, when you frying up your fish or something, what's going to happen?
It's gonna act up.
It's going to act up and you get popped, right? Because oil and water don't mix. Okay? So your body uses that. Your cells separate themselves from one another by way of the phospholipid bilayer, the lipid being in the center, that separates the waters. Okay? So it's called bilayer because it's two layers of these things. Phosphorus head, lipid tail. Phosphorus
So the
head,
fluid
lipid
flow
tail. That the turbine uses is the hydrogen ions in order to produce what? Well, a plane, it produces flight. In this, it produces ATP, which is our flight, because ATP allows us to be able to change the shape of our proteins, which is very important for a protein to be functional. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Are you sure? That didn't sound like it. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, this is what it's about. This is the mama. This is where you get your energy from. This is what I'm saying. Like, I was talking with my queen the other day, who was here for the wonderful anniversary that they had on Sunday. It's beautiful. Everybody was in here. You know, people was eating vegan food, building beautiful people, beautiful clothes. And it's like, we always talk about we star people and we gods and kings and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, look at how we work, you know what I'm saying? But we don't even know some of the most basic principles. And as I do my research and study and really find out what we do, like, yeah. And this is functionality if we're healthy and we're not diseased. Because imagine if we're diseased, that thing might not work. And if that don't work, you don't got no energy. Okay? And we'll get to that shortly. Y'all think the ATP synthase is deep. We ain't even got in the chain, the electron transport chain yet. This is just the intro. So what do you think this is a picture of? If y'all had to guess.
DNA.
So I want to talk about this guy. This is called an iron sulfur cluster. Okay? The iron is the orange and the sulfurs represent the yellow, and this is a composite molecule that is made between sulfur elements and an iron element in your body, and they come together and they are all inside of that first complex. This is the mechanism that transfers electrons through this complex. Remember, it looks like a gun. Okay, that's that complex 1 that had disappeared because of hypoxia. NAD, you see it says NADH and then it says NAD plus that. It means NAD plus a hydrogen proton. Why? Because this H right here represented a complete hydrogen. This hydrogen right here with a plus sign represents just a proton. Where did the electron go? Oh yeah, it's a truck it's a Mack truck with the freight behind it. What's the freight? The electron. It dumped it off. And the blue dots represent the channel that it goes through this mechanism as it's flowing through this chain of these different enzymes, but it starts off here. Well, those iron sulfur clusters are here in this particular molecule, and that's the machinery that's able to receive the electron and pass it on, kind of like a hot potato, without the potato getting cold at all. It stays hot. All right. What's so dynamic about this is that it's the Metatron's cube. You know? So for those of y'all that know about dodecahedron, I know y'all know about the Metatron cube as well. All of the building in our body is based on this framework. You know, if you think of a egg, you know, splitting in 2, then 4, then 8, then 12, 16, 32, you know, everything follows this so that we have symmetry and structure to ourselves. Okay? But that tetrahedron going up, tetrahedron going down, fit into one another as a six-sided star is exactly what these iron clusters are that are inside of complex 1 and a couple other complexes. That is what's responsible for carrying these electrons. These are why these spiritual symbols and geometries exist in all of antiquity, because you know anything that happens on a microscopic is as is above, so below. So once we learn principles, just to recap real quick, let me show you one more thing with here. Okay, so remember, everything you look at in the body is submerged in water. It's in water. Okay? Why is it in water? Just because it wants to be? No. Water must serve a purpose. What is the purpose that water serves? Well, each one of these mechanisms not only is submerged in water, but they're individually wrapped in water. Every molecule. Okay? It's called a hydration shell. Okay? All of our organs have a sac of water around it. Our heart got a pericardium, you know, lungs. Everything has a watery bubble around it. Why? Because of the fourth phase of water, which is called easy water or exclusion zone. Infrared energy, when it hits water, it causes whatever water is near a solid surface, right, to exclude all protons away from the surface. So how does that work in this bottle? If I shine infrared light, which is about 42% of the sun's light that comes in, infrared is always around. Like, even at nighttime, there's always infrared energy, okay? Infrared hits this bottle. The water's made up of H2O, okay? The hydrogens have a positive charge, the oxygens have a negative charge. This is how you understand acidity and alkalinity with like a Cajun device. What makes alkalinity? Hydroxyl groups, a O and a H together, negative charge. What makes something acidic? Increase in hydrogen protons. That's what the mitochondria is. So the matrix is hydroxyl groups, right? While the intermembrane space is hydrogen protons or acidic. And the difference of acidity and alkalinity, Duracell battery, alkaline battery, this is what creates the electricity. Well, as light hits this water, all the water that touched the side of the bottle and the bottom of the bottle and the top of the bottle, if it was full, right, will exclude all protons to the center. So that everything that's touching a surface is predominantly negatively charged, with positive charges being in the center of the bottle. And how you test that is I'll just take this bottle, put it in the freezer, it'll freeze up. But then when I take it out, when it thaws out on the surfaces first, because that's where the heat and the electrons are, and the center stays frozen. You always know that. There's always this frozen center. That's where all the protons are. Okay? So how does that apply to the mitochondria when all of these are individually wrapped by water? When infrared energy enters into the cell or into the mitochondria, it creates an. But I want to give the floor to y'all, because it's not just about what I know. It's about being able to communicate with y'all, seeing where y'all at, and being able to get something from it.
some of the best, I guess, what would be the best way to supplement for those omega-3s, whether you found in your research?
Perilla oil, which I have on the table over there. And the reason why I say that, just to let y'all know, most omega-3s people get through fish and through fish oil. Finding vegan sources are hard. There are algae sources out there too that you can get them. Flaxseed, chia, hemp seed, all of them have it. But the thing you have to keep in mind is there's a ratio omega-6 to omega-3. Anytime you find an oil that got omega-3s in it, there's going to be omega-6s in it too. It's going to be different fatty acids in there. But it's about finding the ratio. And you want the ratio to be 4 to 1. Omega-6s 4 to omega-3s 1. Still going to be more omega-6s, but you want a 4 to 1 ratio. What I found is a plant that is, the oil is about 70% omega-3s, and then the omega-3 level in there, the ratio is 6 to 1, but the 6 is actually omega-3s, and the 1 is the omega-6. So it's flipped, so it's like crazy. So flax, chia, hemp, nobody can mess with it. It's the best way for you to get it in every single day without having bubble guts, because flax, some people, they burping, indigestion, and all types of stuff from that.
And what's that product you was talking about?
Perilla oil. It's on the table
what
right
you
over
have?
there.
Okay.
Yeah, the Perilla oil, I got that.
How much for a bottle of
The Perilla oil is 50, and it's a month's supply. And the good thing about it is you don't have to just take it straight. Like, you might have just made a salad, drop some of the oil in the dressing. You know what I mean? Maybe you saute in some onions, put a little oil in there, you know? You can add it to your foods. It's all about getting the oil in, getting the fatty acid into your diet. This is really Mexico that we're in right now. But
Louisiana.
yeah, it's Olmec. And then it leads into the Mississippi and the mound builders, what you say?
Louisiana.
And Louisiana, yeah. All of this is a result of people who conquered and oppression. And, you know, we're so desensitized now that I won't say we gave up the fight, but we're such a slumber that we gotta wake up in layers, in levels, like Inception. Like, yes. Remember when he woke up, he was still in the dream? Yes. Like, oh, I heard the music again. Wait a minute.
That was the trippiest part.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, as much as we look back at the civil rights movement and Jim Crow, and you see how people were treated, you like, man, I wish. What do you think they said if they look at us right now and we on our phones off not doing nothing? Man, I wish if I had all them resources, I wouldn't be using them. You see what I'm saying? That's what we dealing with right now. So it's just something else to kind of remind us, I need to get on it, because if I don't know if the earth was round or flat, bruh, like, I don't know where I'm living at. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely something to check out. And I'm still doing the research on it. I hope some great evidence come on one or the other. That just shatters whatever it is. I want it to come up, but it just looked like it's going to be this constant argument, which means it's neither. That's what it means. We somewhere in between that boy. Yeah. So, but yeah.
What do the X-Files say?
Well, they about to drop, right? They about to come back out. They gonna say something about it. Best believe they gonna talk about it.
Kind of put a little hint of whatever real in the TV.
All the stuff going on now was in the original series from back in the 90s. They was years ahead of their time with that stuff, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Scully and them, they went all the way in back in the day. That's why they bringing them back, because they was like, yeah, we living in X-Files times now. But yeah, if anybody's interested in getting their mitochondria in order, in cleansing from the holidays, and getting the energy you need, I have a couple items on the table, not many, just some. Somebody wants to get something on the way out. And I also have the book that I co-authored with Minister Inky called the Melanocyte Manifesto. So if you were interested in the mitochondrial information that you saw in this presentation, the excerpt on mitochondria in that book is what I wrote. And then you'll get some of Minister Inky's information in there as well, who also deals, a great deal with the health in the community also. So those items I have on the table if anybody's interested it. Otherwise, I'll be back next week talking about food. Good tasting, good smelling food.